So in this video, we are going to show you guys how we build the custom American flags that we are building at Erdi Designs. It's made of Paduk, which is an African exotic, ash, or maple, which is domestic, and sometimes we use union as a walnut for the union, and we use sometimes ash if we're gonna stain the union blue. Here you can see we are joining two sides of the materials that we're using to cut the stripes out. Once this is joined, we cut the stripes on the table saw to the desired width, and then we're going to bring it over to the next room where we do the glue ups. The glue ups are done typically in 3 stages. The first one, we glue up all the long stripes, and you could see it here. We're just lining it up. We a little oversized the pieces by maybe 1.5 inches, so we have room to cut things to size. And we apply number 2 Tide Bond. We've been using that for many years. And then we put the glue on and we spread it all the way evenly on the surface. It's important, so you have a perfect glue up adhesion between the wood parts. And then the next step here, we are setting up the Bessie clamps to glue up the shorter part of the flag, which is the upper stripes. And as you can see here, this is made of Paduk and American ash. Here, the next phase, we are carving the union. In this case, it's a walnut. We're using our X-Carve 30x30 CNC machine. And once we carved the stars, we fill it up with white epoxy pigment. We use a C28 epoxy, and then we put the white pigment in it. The next step on this, once the epoxy cured, is we square up the union, and this is a very important step. So you have a perfectly fitting parts, because the next step in this will be we are going to glue up all the parts. But you could see here we measure things out exactly so it looks even when we glue these things up, and we make marks on it so we could see that it's actually cutting on the part that we need to cut. And then we square up the upper part for the flag, and that's where the end grain of the walnut union will join, and that's the important part, to be perfectly straight and perfectly flat. Here we are, we're gonna have a couple of videos here that shows planing the parts. We join these first, and then we plane them to a certain thickness, and this helps to keep the flag nice and straight. It's usually don't have a problem with that. Sometimes the lumber comes a little crooked and beat up, and also when we glue up, we have some little differentiation on the heights, but then we make it even, and it comes out like that. It helps to basically do the carving of the waves. And the next step here, we're carving another parts of the flags. This is with the ash union, and this will be stained blue. You will see that at the end of the video. Using a 15-inch helical head jet brand planer, and this makes the wood really nice and clean cut. There's no blowouts, no cheddars in the wood. We really like this planer. It's got carbide tips in it, and it lasts forever, and it makes a beautiful, clean planing surface. So it is important when you glue up the components that you make sure that the stars are actually pointing up. The very first flag I built many years ago, I accidentally glued the union upside down, and it was still loved, but one four-star general sent me a private message on LinkedIn, and he informed me that the union was upside down, and that's when I realized there's actually quite a bit of a thing to know about the American flag and how the proportions go. We use an American flag calculator to calculate the exact portions of it and how is it proportional with the stripes versus the stars and the size of the union versus the flag. Here we are gluing it up basically, and this is how it looks. In the next part here, we gluing up the ash union, and this will be stained blue. And you can get any of these stains basically in these stores, Rockwell, or you can get it at Woodcraft. We use the General Finish water-based blue color, and that seems to be the closest to the actual spec of the color. There's other colors as well, but we find that the best as far as the actual specifications for what color the blue should be. So here we're lining up the parts, and then usually dry fit them first just to make sure it's going together. The longer clamps that you see, it's clamping the union against the shorter stripes. That's an end grain connection, so we usually put a lot more glue in there. Once it's dried, we take this outside and be using a small grinder with a blade on it that has carbide tips on it. This is a very effective tool. I suggest that you, if you haven't used this tool before, practice on something else, on a piece of wood, just to get a hang of it. And it's grabbing really strong, so you have to start out very light and taking tiny shavings with that. And first what we do is we draw the lines on the flag by hand, and then we grind the deepest part of the wave, and it's a lot of grunt work. It's a couple hours of grinding, and as you can see, there's a lot of wood chips that's coming out of it. As far as the union concerned, I try to cut my union stars about 5/8 deep. That gives us a good distance in the depth that we could grind it out really nice and have the actual wave visible. Didn't always do that, and sometimes we grind some stars away and then we have to redo it. Here you could see that the valley of the waves are getting grind, and then we grinding the other direction, and that's when we actually fine grinding with the carbide blade. The next step is to use our Festool Rotax grinder with 60 grit sandpaper, sometimes 40, but 60 is usually enough. And we build up the actual grit all the way up to 150. And you can see how the waves are formed now. And we never make the same of anything, so it's always a different wave pattern. I know some guys out there make it with a CNC machine, but we haven't gotten to that point where we could actually do that. We do have a nice CNC machine, 4 foot by 12 foot size, and it does carve 3D. We tried to run a program on it. It was extremely long, but I'm pretty sure it's more like a programming error versus just that's how long it takes. And then we sand the flag, as you can see here. We sanded 80 grit and then 120 grit, sand it all the way up. And once we got to 150, then we do basically the backside of the flag as well. We grind it nice and flat. As you can see here, we're flipping it, and then we grind that and sand it up to about 120 grit. We usually laser engrave our logo and I sign the flags that we make. That way we know it's from us. And these flags are going to last for several generations. They're made really well. Each flag weighs about 40 pounds once it's fully done. Then we break the edges of the flag. It's a very good practice to do because the Paduk, it's a very, very hard wood, and it gives pretty nasty splinters if it's not properly sanded up and rounded on the edges. You can also use bloodwood. I found that bloodwood is a very brittle, very hard wood to deal with. It also cracks, so we swayed away from that. Now here's a little trick you could see. We blow it off with air, and one of the tricks that I'm going to tell you here, we kind of developed this as we made the flags. While you're doing the final sanding with 150, you basically use the air hose with the nozzle and you blow it in the same time. Otherwise the red color from the Paduk tends to bleed into the ash stripe, and when you spray that, it creates kind of a pink kind of overlap in colors, and it looks okay, but some people don't mind it, some people do, so we just decided to make it all. So first I'm gonna spray the back. We seal the edges and the back. I use ML Campbell vinyl sealer for the edges and for the back as well. It's important to seal it. We do a couple of coats of on the back. Sometimes these flag gets hung outside, which you can, but it's not really recommended to be exposed to sunlight or rain, because eventually it's going to break down and the flag is going to start warping, most likely. Here I'm doing a seal coat on the top, on the face of the flag, and this is the one with the walnut. You can see how it transforms colors. It's actually quite nice. And after the seal coat, we use a top coat, which is also an ML Campbell product. It's called Crystal Dull. It's a post-catalyzed conversion varnish, so we mix it before we spray it, and you have about 4 hours to work with the product before it actually starts setting up and creates that film. We do about 3 coats on the front, and once this is sprayed and we let it dry, and here's the final product. It came out really beautiful. The one thing I haven't mentioned is the flags. When we do the flags, you have, the stars, and they tend to get blue, so I go into detail a little bit more on how we get the blue off of it. And here we're laser engraving this. This was a custom flag for somebody who got promoted to colonel, and here's the actual name and the logo. Later we find out that was actually not in the Air Force, it was in the Army, so we had to grind that part off and then we just replaced it. Here you could see the staining. The staining is actually done in a way that you could see that it's already finished on the stripes. So I do 2 coats of seal coat on that, and then I mask it off. That way the bleed over is going to be a lot less. And then I use the general finish blue color to wipe and stain and wipe the union. And after that I use a rubber block that you can buy at Harbor Freight. It's usually used for cleaning up sandpapers and stuff, for belt sanders, and that brings the blue out of the actual white epoxy. It does a pretty good job. I don't think it's perfect, but it's a lot whiter than when you stain it, and you have to do it within a couple of hours after it dried fully, and then it cleans up really nice, the flag itself. And you could see a video here, one of the flags with the blue union. This is we made for a client of ours up in Washington DC, and this was actually a donation to his organization to raise money for a non-profit organization that his outfit was supporting.